You hear me mention kind of the foster and kinship role, and there are some differences I would say between being a kind of licensed foster parent and a kinship provider. Obviously, both individuals are parenting someone else's child and is taking the steps necessary to provide a safe and stable home for that particular child. I just believe that in my experience as a professional as well as a kinship caregiver, there's much to be said about the differences between the two. A foster parent has, in my opinion, the ability to, and I've seen this with some of the individuals we work with, to really set those boundaries in some regard as it relates to engagement with family members that are that are related to the child, a lot of the history associated with that child's family. And when you're a kinship provider, you don't have that option. A lot of the information, not only are you aware of, but you probably were a part of it or involved in it in some way. And you have the emotional connection and ties to not only that child, but also the parents that unfortunately are not able to care for that child. In my situation, this was my sister, a sister that I, all of my life, had looked up to and adored and been a part of her life. And then now we were in a very different space and a different place in terms of our relationship and what was going on. Initially in this process, I was in a space where I was very disappointed in my sister. I was disappointed in maybe some of the decisions that she had made and how she was moving and making choices and decisions in her life and how they had impacted her son, which was my nephew. Also still very, upset with his father in terms of his absence and the role that he had chose. And it would create this frustration in me because I felt like my nephew deserved better. And for a while I was stuck there and not really realizing how I could transition things. And although I couldn't replace their role, I could try to do the best that I could to make life better or easier for him and move into that role. And again, it was important for me to transition the focus in terms of parenting my nephew from what I felt like my sister and his dad should be doing and what they could have been doing and what they weren't doing, and transitioning that just to what I could do. And I recall specifically my brother asking me the question, and well, why don't you just send him back? Why don't you just send him back to his sister? And that's when I also realized that I had to surround myself around some other individuals that had a greater understanding of my decision to be 100% committed to parenting someone else's child. Even though this was my brother's nephew, no doubt in my mind that he loved him as well. He just had not arrived at the place where I was to have a better understanding about working through those challenges, being committed to this young man, being committed to my nephew for his best outcome. And so it definitely will have an impact on those relationships. Well, it definitely had an impact on my relationship. And looking back at it now, when I think about how it had an impact on just the family dynamics as a whole, it can take a toll. And this is where you have to remind yourself about why you're doing this, how you want to do this most effectively. I think that we have transitioned ourselves now to where we're in a place where it's much better. And that had a lot to do with my maturity and my understanding as well as hers. My nephew is still a part of my life. He still he's still here. He still lives with me. He's still, I'm still probably in that kind of parenting role of this early 20-something-year-old young man. But there were some times during this process where it was very, very challenging for my relationship with my sister. And growing up in a family that's very close-knit, it would sometimes spill over into the relationships with my other brothers and sisters, the relationship with my parents. And there was a lot of frustration throughout the family about what was going on and what would be happening. And I really believe that he didn't know this, but he was able to relate to me in a better way because of the things that I had been able to release and was willing to release in order to parent him.